Hello, welcome to Retro Toy Princess. I am Allison Troy, and we are going to be doing a Masters of the Universe coloring today. And we will be doing a quick flip through of the book before we get started. And good morning, Thanos. Lovely to see you. I just finished watching your video. Lovely work as always. All right, I'm going to take myself off camera and get to the good part. And here we go. Good morning, Rhea. I always say Rhea because it sounds Star Wars-y, so I apologize if that's the wrong pronunciation. Good morning, Payne. Lovely to see you. Hello, Aaron. All right, we'll start with the sort of flip through. So this is from 1984. I actually bought this as a PDF. None of my childhood copies of this one survived. I actually have 3 or 4 of this one. This was one of my favorite books as a kid. So I have it in PDF, but I did the bougie thing I like to do, and I printed the whole thing out on my fancy paper, including cover, because the ultimate goal is I'm going to fill various Trapper Keepers with them, and as you can see, a lot of my daily shorts and other videos that I've done are in here. There's also a few that didn't make it, like this is the one I did the short from, but these were the 2 practice evil ones I did. Mossman, he'll show up eventually, Clamp Champ, Scareglow for Halloween. Oh, Revenge of Skeletor, I did an entire book. That will be on the channel soon with new narration. So I've got some master stuff coming up. Anyway, let's get to the flip through really quick. So we have some classic art. I'm not quite sure who did this page. I mean the cover. I looked it up and couldn't find it. But we got Beastman, He-Man, and Teela. What's interesting about this book is even though it was published in 1984, most of this is pre-filmation, so there is no Prince Adam in here. And even though we've got this Teela on the cover, it's actually the blonde Teela from early Alcala. So there are a few pictures of the sorceress in here. So it seems like it's that transitional point between the original Jungle He-Man and Prince Adam He-Man. So anyway, as we can see, the cover page of it is blonde Teela with the crown. We have Skeletor playing with chess figures of our heroes. And we've got, I'm going to say this is probably the goddess based on sort of where we were with it. Man-at-Arms wandering around Castle Grayskull. I like that they have this metal handrail for, so that you can safely make your way down the stairs. Really quick, let me check chat. Hello, Carol. Oh, yeah. Definitely good luck at Ross. Good morning, Alex. Nice to see you. So anyway, yeah, apparently Castle Grayskull is about accessibility, and there are handrails in some of the hallways. So good work on the elders for looking into that. Oh, here we have He-Man punching out Skeletor with a pow and a thud. He probably said something really rude. You know how Skeletor is. We've got Stratos flying through the mountains of Eternia. We're at that phase where a lot of times it looks like they were just drawing Europe, the Alps and the mountains and stuff, rather than the fantastical. There's that interesting time between the first mini comics and then Filmation where sometimes it just looks like Europe. Oh, here we've got He-Man shooting Skeletor from the battle ram. And as you can see, the art in this is really not super great. It looks really rushed, which probably was. A lot of it was how quickly can we get this out? Because this was at the point where Masters of the Universe was blowing up and they wanted lots of product. We got He-Man, Skeletor, and Merman hiding behind a rock. Because why wouldn't you? He-Man is throwing Skeletor in the water. Obviously, he stinks because he old. Quick with the chat. Good afternoon. Well, it's morning here in the west, on the west coast, but good afternoon to Toy Mama. I know you're in a different time zone. Anyway, so He-Man is throwing Skeletor in the water. He probably does stink. I mean, look at him. He's like half skeleton. Merman pulling him out of the water. Get your stinky garbage trash butt out of my ocean. You know, Greenpeace would not be thrilled with that kind of littering. Oh, here we've got Merman stripping He-Man and holding him hostage. I don't think there's any consent here, so this is not appropriate, boys and girls. He-Man and Battle Cat without his helmet on. So this is obviously pre-Cringer. So again, this is before the Cringer thing was even there, which this is an interesting period to me. I kind of prefer pre-Filmation. I was not a huge fan of Prince Adam or Cringer. They're fine. We've got Merman flying the Wind Raider, which at one point it was intended that the Wind Raider was just either or. Also, at one point, Merman was considered to be a hero, and Stratos would be the villain, and I think they flipped it. And so it could be that some of this is from early production art, because a lot of the pictures in this are basically just like inspired by the mini comics or some of the production art. This is from one of the mini comics where the Sky Sled portion of the battle ram is going off, and Merman's got hot foot or some such. Here we've got Trapjaw laughing through a window at Man-at-Arms, and it looks like a dungeon, and this picture would have been drawn around the time they were developing the dungeon playset that never manifested. It was when they were considering doing a lot of sort of add-on playsets for Grayskull, and the dungeon one was designed so that you would actually put Grayskull on top of it. So I would assume this was probably inspired by the fact that they were going to possibly do a dungeon playset, and then it never happened, but it's still a fun image. Here we have He-Man fighting some sort of dragon lizard thing. This is not, the artist doing these is not the best, as we will see as we go through a few more of these. His dragon's not particularly great. Good morning, Brick. Yeah, I do. I did Payne's stream on Friday night, and about 5 minutes before the end, I started feeling funky. And after we ended the stream, within 10 minutes, I was like, I went to bed at 9:30 and slept till like 1 o'clock yesterday. So I'm better today, but I just got a little bit of the congestion left. So I didn't want to not stream today because it's not bad. I feel fine other than the congestion. So anyway, not a great dragon, and we'll see more not great dragons. But at least He-Man's trying to like make sure his teeth are all in good shape. Here we see the sorceress giving He-Man the harness, the sword, and the shield. So kind of a play on the picture of the goddess from the first mini comic. Obviously, this is where everything starts switching to Filmation. So, but she's out of Grayskull, so they hadn't yet decided she could not leave Grayskull unless she was in Zor form. Here we have Blonde Teela being attacked by Skeletor with his power blade. Early mini comics, his blade actually shot energy bolts, and this is a different sword than the power sword. So we never got, I don't think we've gotten this version of Skeletor's sword in any Skeletor yet, so that's definitely something it would be cool if somebody did at some point. This is a 2-page spread, so let's So we've got, yeah, there we go. Skeletor and Beastman hiding in the grass. And, like, there's Tila giving the unicorn water in a bucket because I guess the lake is too dirty for him to drink directly from it, or I'm not sure. And here Charger is a unicorn that sort of flipped around between him just being a big gold horse when they were going to repurpose a Barbie horse for Charger. And then sometimes he was a unicorn. We wouldn't obviously get unicorns until Swiftwind later. So, but yeah, this was an early motif in Mo2, capturing Tila so that Skeletor could marry her, and because as she was the guardian of Grayskull, he would then become King Grayskull. So, luckily, we've lost a lot of that. Here we've got Skeletor and Beastman with the map wandering through Castle Grayskull. Let's check really. Alpha Magnus, hello. There's a good joke here. Feel better, friend. I've been as sick as your ex's mom's face for the last week. Starting to feel, yep, her face is super sick. I will, yep, sometimes you just power through. It's not bad, as I said. Anyway, he's got a map, northwest, east, and south. It's an outdoor map, it looks like to me, so I'm not sure what help that would be in Grayskull, but hey, who knows. He's also this pose of Skeletor's. Interesting, he's wearing gloves, so this is definitely gloved Skeletor as opposed to thin Skeletor. Headbutt Stratus knocking Merman off the Sky Sled. So rude. I mean, hopefully Merman survives the fall because we're so far up there are clouds. This is another 2-page spread. We've got possibly Castle Grayskull based on the look of the tower he's in, but there we go. Beastman firing a laser at He-Man, but the river and the mountain aren't typical Grayskull backdrops, so who knows. And this was also when they were considering Point Dread as Skeletor's lair and not necessarily where Point Dread, where the Talon Fighter was. So it's possible this was part of whatever their grand scheme was for Point Dread. But it didn't happen, so. Here we see Point Dread as it became another double-page spread. He-Man and Zodak, and obviously the proportions here are a little off. This is more in line with the toy. But yeah, so Zodak pointing out Point Dread. Good luck, guys. And here we've got He-Man in Castle Grayskull looking at a computer screen of Grayskull, or it's possible this is in Point Dread. But if it is, obviously it's a situation where the inside is bigger than it looks from the outside. So, yeah, you know. And it's wide open mouth Grayskull. Like, apparently the door is just wide open at Grayskull all the time here. We've got He-Man flying the Talon Fighter up through the mountains of Europe. He-Man punching out Merman with a big pow. Possibly in Grayskull, but the grass back here makes me wonder where maybe there's a courtyard. So, Trapjaw versus Manny Faces. We've got Zaps because they both have lasers, and there's a pow. I guess his foot is doing a pow on Manny Face's foot. Not sure. That's one of the ones where I kind of wonder what was going on, but full metal legs for Trapjaw. I'm in a belt, and it looks like a full harness for the chest. So possibly production art, or just weird artist representation. So this is a fun image. We've got Evelyn tying up, and it's Evelyn with Filmation style outfit. But she has tied up Tila, who is now wearing the snake armor, and she's stealing her hat. So, This is Masters of the Universe Mean Girls edition. Yeah, I colored all of these as a kid, Aaron. Like I said, I had this coloring book like 3 or 4 times and did most of these pictures over and over. So it's kind of a trip as an adult, 40 some years later, that I'm on the internet coloring these. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Anyway, it's an interesting picture. It's funny. It's a little funny. Like, let me take your hat. Faker versus He-Man. This tree looks definitely European, so somewhere in Europe there's a blue robotic He-Man versus regular He-Man. Because why not? Here we have Skeletor mixing potions. This is one of the pictures Bud had picked for today, so I'm not going to color this because I'm going to reschedule with Bud and have him when he feels better. Just a cool picture. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this one or the other one Bud picked. But it's fun seeing Skeletor mixing potions. And you'll see a lot of that, as far as I know, in Filmation. My memory of some of the episodes is dicey, but I don't ever remember Skeletor being potion mixy or whatever, so. Let's see. Black Phoenix. Yeah, well, that's part of why we're doing the walkthrough, so you can all have the member berries. Aaron, let's talk, because I can get you copies of these. Here we've got Ram Man bursting through a door, possibly Grayskull, but if so, it's a different lock. Some of these I think were just like, here's a way we can display Ram Man doing his Ram Man stuff. Man at arms, forging a sword. This is a pretty cool image. And we don't see a lot of this man at arms. Most of the man at arms we see is the technical electronic stuff that became more prevalent in Filmation. So it's nice to sort of get the more hands-on blacksmith version of Man at Arms. I wish Filmation had sort of balanced that better, so he wasn't always just technology and computers. We've got Zor versus Screech. And I'm pretty sure this is Screech because look how messy his feathers are. You know he's evil because his feathers are all ratty looking. I'm not sure. Bud just contacted me yesterday and said things were not feeling well, so we went ahead and decided not to do it today and then I was just like, I'm going to do it anyway because I don't feel that bad, so. So yeah, Screech versus Zor. This is before Zor is the sorceress, because you can tell by the not so well drawn rockets on the back. He-Man in the attack track, crunching rocks. So he's a little bit Bigfoot right here. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. See, wait, let me see if I can. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Down at Eternia. Bigfoot, attack track. Anyway, yeah. More man at arms doing the armory stuff. Cool helmet with the bird. Probably an eagle, but it's so poorly drawn. It's one of the reasons I think doing pages from this will be fun, because I'm hoping I can sort of, with the color pencil, sort of make it a little better, because it's not necessarily that it's bad art, it just looks like it was so quickly thrown together that it's a little sloppy. So I think I can do some fun things with that. Skeletor on the bone throne that's just all skeletons. So I'm assuming this is, because this is before Keldor. So I'm just going to assume this is his family, and it's all of the Skeletors from before. Because in the original canon, he was from a different dimension at one point, full of people just like him. And then later, he was from the planet Infinita, which is full of evil people and other people of his species. So this is definitely pre-Filmation, because Filmation didn't ever actually give him any background or history. And he had a different bone throne. It wasn't a bunch of Skeletor heads. So, considering how many extra Skeletor heads we've gotten in Origins, we definitely could make this particular bone throne, just if you've bought every Skeletor that came with an alt head. Here we've got an interesting take on the Evelyn card back. Because this is straight up, even down to the snake. And since I have that, we'll compare and contrast really quick. Let's see, where is she at? And some of the things in here I have not released yet, so some of those. So yeah, this is the actual card back art. And this video is up on my YouTube right now where I colored that. So yeah, it's basically the same picture. Oh, let me that. Yeah, I'm gonna at some point do a flip through of the portfolios. So yeah, that's part of the joy of having all of these. All right, is the audio back? Is the okay? Cool, perfect. Apologies. So really quick, since this would have been muted, Manny faces Mechanic Tila. This is post blonde Tila, so this would be redhead Tila, and because the crown and the snake staff. And I was just stating this vehicle looks very Motu, but because I've never seen this, I think this is likely a prototype we've never seen before. because I don't think the artist would have created a ship wholesale. So at some point I'm gonna contact Adam at Battle Ram and chat with him about this to see if he knows what the ship is. So haven't got around to it yet because so many different things to do. But the ship is interesting because it does look very Motu. So, and it would have been a fun little single seater vehicle of some sort. That's what I thought that is exactly what I thought at first, and I just wrote it off. But then whenever I was going through this last night, preparing for this walkthrough of it, there are other pictures of the Wind Raider in here that are far more on model. Let me flip over to that really quick. See, like right here, and this one with Merman probably predated this one because Triclops is wave 2, and all of the other pictures are wave 1. I would assume that a lot of these were sort of worked up before wave 2 started hitting. So my guess is likely this was a wave 2 prototype or a wave 2 concept that didn't make it to market. Could be wrong. It could 100% just be the artist got bored with the drawing the Wind Raider and drew this instead. But like I said, I'm going to contact Adam probably closer to when I color this page to sort of get feedback, because some of these pages I'm going to do on live stream. Some of them will just end up being shorts. This one I would like to talk to Adam and sort of make it a short video where I talk about the vehicle. So hopefully he would be open to some sort of collab with that, because Adam is the man with the knowledge at this point. With He-Man.org on, Adam is sort of the archivist. So anyway, yeah. We've got Trapjaw capturing Zor. Again, not a great, I mean, I'm trying to be really generous to the artist. I know this was done really quickly, but some of this is just, I have not been drawing a lot, and some of this is on level with where my rusty skills would be if I had to whip this picture in 10 to 15 minutes. So again, I think with this one I'll be able to, when I finally get to color this one, I think I'll be able to fix it. Probably do some metallics for the net, like a nice metallic paint pen or some such, and get a gel pen, like one of the glittery gel pens, and do it in silver. Or even like sort of the pink of his furry chunks. So we'll see. We've got He-Man, Teela on Battle Cat. Very much drawn from the Battle Cat toy. They're happy. He's angry. And there's a flag of He-Man symbol, and it doesn't look like Castle Grayskull. So somewhere in this European type place, there's a little Fort He-Man. So yeah. Some of this too, I think, is probably just the artist some of like this, I think, is the artist just creating some scenarios to get kids' imaginations going. I don't think most of the, like some of this is, I think, prototypes and toys that were planned, and some of it I think is just scenarios. We have a Skybird with Stratos, and yeah, again, this is a cool concept, but it just feels like it was so rushed. Like, I think if the artist had had a little bit more time, this could have been a really cool picture. So again, this one will probably be one, if I could get in there and do some scales or something, I could probably really elevate it. So this one I have a video on, the Mask of Teela. This was my favorite picture in this book as a kid. This is the reason I got this book 3 or 4 times, so that I could keep coloring this one. And now I have it in PDF form, so I can just print this page and color it as many times as I want. I don't necessarily feel like doing that, though, now that I've, the sleeve is giving a bit of a glare. So yeah, anyway. So yeah, watch the video. It's only like 16 or 17 minutes. No, you can't. You can't at all because the Masterverse Teelas are all pretty cool. Anyway, this was a fun page. I really enjoyed it. Watch the video. I talk a little bit about it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I took that out of the. That's why the folder was out. I took that out so I could put it back in. Here we've got He-Man and Teela surrounded by snakes. I guess there's snake dragon, Loch Ness monsters, some such. The Arturnian snakes that aren't related to the snake men. This one I think might be a girl because look at those eyelashes. She's got very, very girly eyelashes. This is one thing I will give the artist. Each one of these snakes has a different like structure, so they're not. It's clearly not all the same snake. I do appreciate this one. This one has a rounded nose. This one has got sort of a hump. This one. So he's obviously a decent artist, I think, if he had just had more time. And then we've got Skeletor's magic head floating to laugh at them as they're afraid of snakes, which is not very He-Man or Teela, because who has a snake staff that could probably control the snakes? Anyway, more pre-filmation mythology where we've got Zor with a mask delivering the power sword to He-Man. You're welcome. There's not been a Masterverse Teela yet that isn't good. Even the one with the haircut that people are like, oh my god, that's woke. All the more reason to get her because she's really cool. Anyway, back to this. So yeah, there's Zor with his mask, which I don't know, maybe part of the prototype or if it's just, again, artist representation. At least in this case, Zor is in scale with what the toy would be to the figure. So I appreciate that. This one cracks me up. We've got Battle Cat chasing a Skeletor butterfly. So just take a moment or two to appreciate the Skeletor butterfly. Like, this is going to be fun to color when I get to it. I'm going to do all sorts of shimmery things for the wings. But yeah, the artist was like, I know what we could do. Because cats like to, as somebody who has many cats, they like to chase bugs. So accurate, but I just like that it has Skeletor faces, which is why he's extra messed up about it. You know, Thanos, they can be. They really can. Yeah. Anyway, He-Man using his sword to cut through vines. So that, you know, damn the ecology and stuff. Jungle He-Man. This is a 2-page spread. We've got Man-at-Arms loading arrows into the arrow gun. And we've got Teela, and this looks like Prince Adam, actually. I was wrong earlier when I said there was no Prince Adam. But yeah, so I think this is the first Prince Adam in this series of this coloring book. So I was incorrect earlier, but he's toward the end of the book. But this is more of the cartoon dynamic with the 3 characters. But still more not as technological, even though that, you know, like cartoon Man-at-Arms, it would have been firing like lasers or some such. But and no mustache, so it's, and this Adam has sleeves. So yeah, and it's not from the prototype Adam before Prince Adam and He-Man were the same, because there is a concept of Prince Adam in a big hat where he was considered as a foppish type character that sort of played both sides. He would ally with He-Man or Skeletor depending on which suited him best. So it's interesting that the 2 characters ended up combined. You know, He-Man and Prince Adam, because the original concept for Prince Adam was not Prince Adam-ish. So, but yeah, we've got Teela with more of a filmation look. giggling, like touching her hair, which I touch my hair all the time, so I get it. Oh, we've got Evelyn on a dragon, and it reminds me of all the stories of women who put the washer on spin cycle and then chill. So anyway, yeah, Evelyn riding the dragon. So many jokes. So many jokes. Well, thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, I did too. I don't like where that face covering just seems like it's there as a design element rather than the practicality of the original design. So, and I don't like the mustache. I like original, sort of gnarly face, man at arms. Again, pre-filmation, sort of filmation, because this design did originate with filmation. But she's out of the castle, so they hadn't solidified where she couldn't leave. And He-Man's surprised to see her up in the sky flying in joyously. So that. Panther and Skeletor. And Skeletor has some weird foot action thing happening here. Like one of his toes is super broke. So hopefully he gets medical help for that, because that does not look good at all. Oh yeah, and this is also a 2-page spread with He-Man and Battle Cat versus Skeletor and Panther. So we've got Merman under the sea with Skeletor in the water. This is adapted from a previous coloring, the first Motu coloring book. And it's not replicated as, like, the original piece is much nicer. Again, which is why I think this was just quickly thrown together. It is curious to me that they didn't just reuse the image, but the image this was from had words. It was a title page. So I'm thinking they repurposed it because they don't want to have to take the extra time to remove the words from the art, which would have been really easy back then because it would have just been pasted on before they sent it in for printing. Here we have Skeletor in front of Castle Grayskull, dreaming of the power swords. But I don't know why, because the door is just wide open, so you can sort of walk in to Grayskull. And I do like that here Grayskull looks more like some sort of snake face rather than a human skull face. It's a little scrunchy. And it's not very tall. Like, yeah, he's like this big, so he could basically jump up and grab that window ledge, climb up on it, and then flip into the tower if he can't cram himself through that window. So proportions are a bit off here. I have the power. And I probably should have cleaned this image better, but this works. So yeah, this is the, again, like probably some early filmation stuff ended up here, but yeah, so we've got I Have the Power, which is a pretty cool picture. We've got Jungle Beastman on a vine swinging through the jungle. He looks really mad, which you would be too if you had extra toes on this foot like he does. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I guess it has the 5. It's just, it looks like his foot may be swollen a little bit. He's got, his ankles swell too. So, like, not only do you have to go out and do evil for Skeletor, but you've got swollen ankles while you're doing it. It's hard being a Beastman in Eternia. Manny Faces, grabbing Tila. Interestingly, he's in his human form, so he's not a monster or a robot. He's just having a bad day. This is actually the picture I'm going to work on today during stream, just because why not? But yeah, and this is from a mini. There's a scene in at least one of the mini comics where this happens. So Again, a lot of these pictures are from the mini comic. Triclops. Staring through a wall. I can't tell if it's Grayskull, but probably not. This is probably meant to be Eternos, because this does look closer to the way the Eternos guards were portrayed at this point. They were much more like knights than wearing man-at-arms armor. I do like, though, that Triclops appears to have like a hood on under his visor. So that's a unique sort of element to his design. This is a 2-page spread also. We've got Man-at-Arms, He-Man, and Stratos, and they're joyously approaching Castle Grayskull. And here, Grayskull looks more like a human, but a little bit like a Neanderthal skull rather than a human skull. Well, I mean, Neanderthals were human, but yeah, so Neanderthal Grayskull, but it's tiny little Grayskull, not very big. It's got the little hut on the side here so that you can, like, that's a side entrance where, like, the servants enter. The sorceress using her magic to open a door, which is directly taken from the mini comic with the goddess character. And so this one is recycled. But a cool picture because she doesn't often get such action-oriented. That was the one thing about sort of the sorceress as opposed to the goddess, whereas the goddess was more action-oriented, the sorceress was a lot more passive, which is kind of sad and dumb. Here we have Skeletor in a cloud of technology, surrounded by technology. I'm not sure. Is this a hologram being generated by one of these machines, or does he just travel around in a cloud? I'm not sure, but it's kind of funny. I think this is one where the artist was just making up stuff and he was almost done and he was out of ideas and he's like, I'll do this. I think this one will be fun to color, though. This was another one that Bud had potentially chosen, so this is probably the one I'll do when Bud and I get to reschedule. This one is classic early Motu for me. We got Skeletor on the throne of Grayskull, being Skeletor. This is a good image. Like, I really like this one. It's pretty powerful, I think. So yeah, when Bud and I get to reschedule, this is probably the one I'll do at that point. I do on the community thread. I didn't delete the one where I sort of said, hey, Bud and I are hanging out. This one is on the thread if anyone wants to go, the community tab, if anyone wants to go and download this one and the other one. So that you have it, you can color along when we do that episode. But yeah. Zodak blowing apart a boulder from Beastman. Pretty close to the Zodak gun. He's got the monster feet. So again, pre-filmation here. It's nice to see Zodak. Zodak is one of my favorite early characters, and he doesn't get quite the love in a lot of the media that I wish he did. My first two Motu figures were Teela and Zodak. I got them for my birthday in like 1983, I think. My grandparents sent me some money, and that's what I bought. Teela and Zodak, $4.99 each. My mom had to give me like $1 so I could cover the taxes. But yep. This is a fun image. We've got the attack track with no driver. So this, there was sort of the thing that happened that was part of the mythology at one point where the attack track had some sort of AI sentience. And it's attacking Skeletor, and he's falling, and his hood has kind of come off. So, contrary to what New Adventures would have you believe, he is quite the Chrome Dome. So, yeah, no hair on Skeletor. Well, it's possible in the back here, but seems unlikely. It seems like he's probably just completely a skull head. So. Maybe part of the nanobites for New Adventures gave him that hair, but I doubt it. I think those were plug-in, like, sewn in or something. Those are like hair plugs. So, and that is the last page. So, completes the walkthrough of the flip through walkthrough of the book. That aside, let's check the chat. Apologize. Breck, interesting because I had that recommended to me over the weekend also. So definitely let's talk about that. Yep, I already saw that one. Hello, Cobb. Welcome. I love Zodak. Yeah, like he's just really cool. Like I don't understand why people are so ambivalent. I get maybe partly because some people are very Filmation heavy, and he didn't feature a lot in Filmation. There's also sort of all the mix-up where instead of like a neutral character, he was at times portrayed as a villain in the, and then he was sometimes portrayed as a heroic character. I think maybe some of that confusion just, yeah, and he was also sort of a last minute, you know, like he was not originally intended for the line. It was when Mattel was like, "How we can't have two female characters in this 8-wave introduction. Like, let's combine Tila and the sorceress into one, and give Tila the snake armor. People will know that's what's up, and make Zodak." So yeah. Oh, I've got Cat Rampage. Sir. No. 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 Alright, Cat Rampage dealt with. He ran right into a stack of action figures, which obviously not boxed. So I am going to quickly print out. I meant to do it before the stream and then forgot. I'm going to print out my reference for this. But we're going to... this one, ironically, despite all of my ranting about the Europeanness of it, I'm going to go with a little bit more of that European look. I'm not going to make it quite as fantastical. But we're going to definitely add to it a little bit, because it is a little too generic for my taste. So I've got my little stencils here. Let's see, I'm going to do a planet right there. And then let's do another planet right there. There we go. And then just for good measure, let's do one back over here. And we'll quickly make a border. So, I never really stay in the lines of these, but it's just good for me to have them so that I've got a little bit of a guide. Alright, there we go. Alright, so the question becomes, do we do orange planets or do we do orange sky? You're welcome. I'm going to try to start doing that for some of these color alongs. I'm going to do more pages from this book, so I probably am not going to repeat it when I do a few more live streams for them. But I'm going to do that as part of it, just because a lot of these vintage books, they are interesting to those of us who are into these lines. I now have a complete collection of all of the Kenner Empire Strikes Back coloring books from the 80s. So I'm going to do a series of flip-throughs on those Just because, again, it's like one of the reasons I'm sort of doing the content I'm doing is I had noticed in a lot of the toy tube spaces, this side of the merchandising, the coloring books and stuff, just isn't sort of paid attention to. And there's some really, a lot of these old books, especially before things like cartoon, the Filmation cartoon was sort of the beginning of that sort of marketing for toys. So before that, a lot of marketing was the coloring books. Like, you could tell complete stories. I have a lot of Barbie coloring books that I have picked up. And a lot of those were literally like, and there are montages of her going shopping where it's like literally her buying every outfit that they released that year in the Barbie line. So it's really interesting that some of the coloring books are really just sort of overlooked by fans. The Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, especially because Kenner was working with sort of production stills and stuff, especially for the first 4. There are a couple of candid shots that were just sort of behind the scenes stuff that ended up in the coloring book. There's a picture of Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher in one of them where they're like sort of hugging and cuddling and smiling, where it's of course with where the concept of the Luke, Leia, and Han triangle were at the time. You would think that's what it is, but later it's shown up as like a production still of them behind the scenes sort of being Carrie and Mark. So it's really interesting, like sort of all of that. So I'm going to try to get a lot of that on. I got some She-Ra color forms. I'm going to do a video where I just basically walk through the She-Ra color forms. Because again, color forms were another huge play pattern that we all had in the 70s, 80s, and 80s that like don't get a lot of play. And they were really important to our play patterns as kids. So try to get some attention to all of our Gen X bullshit. You guys did go late last night. I was just sort of still in that place yesterday where I was recovering from the quick onset of this cold. And I was like, if I want to like wake up ready for the stream, I just can't jump on there. So I watched quite a bit of it and listened and colored a couple pages that I wanted to get done. But and it was hard not to jump on there with you guys last night, but I just had to executive decision. So just get the plan. I liked originally I didn't do the backgrounds first. I would do the characters. And through shorts, I discovered people would stop watching as soon as I did the characters. So I started doing the backgrounds first. But what I have realized since is if I do the backgrounds first, I'm happy. I've noticed I'm a lot happier with the pictures because I'm building back to the front because I know pretty much what Manny Faces and Tila are going to look like. But this way, if I start with the planets, and then the sky, sort of the additional things I do to sort of make it a little cooler, it gives me a better sense of what I want my color composition to be. So really quick, this is finished printing out. This is what I'm using as references, is this picture from Wave 1 Mini Comics by the immensely talented Akala. And then this is also Akala from Wave 2, which is, I'm pretty sure, where this image comes from, is him. So this is my reference point. So I'm going to sort of go with the blue sky, the blue-purple mountains, and then the ground, sort of these brown shades. And I think it'll contrast pretty well with, and I'm going to go bare-skinned, not orange. I'll probably give him some nipples. Shocking. So yeah, this is my reference, and I just got that set up here. I forgot to change the paper out since this is on my fancier paper. I normally just do this on regular printer paper because it's not like I really need these for long term. So this is some of my sometimes though I just pull up JPEGs on the computer and have them pulled up on screen, but not today. All right, let's see. So we're gonna do blue sky. For the blue sky, I'm gonna break out my Stardroid Gold 120 pencil set, and I'm going to use some of the blues. I like to use these for the backgrounds, especially the blues. Prismacolor blues are great, but sometimes they can be really crumbly and powdery, which then gets blue pigment all over the page and it smears. These have more oil than wax in them, so they tend to not smear quite the same way. And I think these three are going to work for my blue sky. So, and then the clouds, there we go. So we'll close those clouds off. No, not that one. Get the right, yep, use the right brush pen. And just fix the clouds. All right, there we go. And then for skies, because of the way they work, I often just do sort of really, I'll do a really less rough first level, and sort of like whatever undertone I want. Just quickly fill that in. And because of the nature of skies, sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter as much, especially with the extra planets. If some of it's darker, I'm not necessarily looking for an even sky color because that's not particularly, in my opinion, that's not a normal phenomenon. If you look at your skies outside when they're clouds and stuff, it's not like a even gradient. You've got variations in there. I don't know if you guys can hear in the background, but the cats are rampaging and playing this morning, so it's quite entertaining to Matt. So you will hear Matt laughing in the background as stuff crashes about. That's what happens when you have a 10, it's like, no, he's not 10 months old. He's like, we've got like a 12-week-old kitten who's just getting to that point where he's not a kitten, but he's not an adult. So, and we've got older cats who are just, he's now big enough where they can thump him around without feeling like they're being bullies. So it's been 2 or 3 fun weeks of cat parentage. All right, so getting the sky to sort of where I want it for the blue part of it. I think I'm going to add some purple in there, just to give it a little bit more of a fantasy look. This is a little too earthy. I'm not a big fan of earth. From Motu, like, I'm not a fan of sort of the addition of Marlena being from Earth. My least favorite part of the movie was that they went to Earth. Even though I know, like, Brick's mom worked near there, I think. I think that's what you had said that one time. But at one point she worked close to it on the Punk with Toys Thursday with a Friend. But I'm just, I don't know. I like my fantasy to be fantastical rather than Earth. Alright. So I've got the blues in there, but I'm going to add a purple or 2. So I've got those 2 purples. And add like a darker pink. should give me enough of a fantasy to it. Here we go. See, already I'm liking what the purple is doing. Really quick, I'm going to check chat. Do it. Yeah, at first I did as well. That's why some of my earlier stuff is not as good as more recent stuff. Yeah, that's sort of my one conflict. I do like the matte mason. So, yeah, early on I was less inclined to do add stuff to the picture. Not even just because, not even as an affront to the artist, but just because it was sort of breaking, like as a kid, you don't often think to do stuff like that. At least I didn't. And I had, and this is childhood art trauma. I had Easter in kindergarten, like you would do the Easter hunt for your entire class. There were 4 different kindergartens at my school. It was in a military town, so there, a lot of kids. Pretty big military town in Texas. And so all of the kindergartens were in one classroom, and it was not my normal teacher. And they gave us these worksheets to color that had bunnies on them. And I was used to my teacher who would just give them out and let us color. So I started coloring. I got my page like immediately. I was the first one to get a page. And I started coloring. And then and there were like probably 100 kids in the room because, it was like 3 or 4 kindergarten classes, and each of our classes had like 20, 30 people in them. So it took a while. So I was almost entirely done. I had maybe 1 rabbit left. And that's when the teacher that was in charge of us starts giving instructions. And she says, I don't want to see any rabbits that aren't normal. No purple bunnies, no pink bunnies, no blue bunnies. They need to be brown and black or white. Which one is stupid because how boring. And 2, I had colored all of them pink and blue and purple already, except for so I colored the last one brown. And so then we had to turn them in, which I did not want to do. And you had to, the way it was, like we had to go up, each of us, and turn our page in. And so I was one of the last ones because I just knew. And she looked down at it and looked at me, and she didn't give it a frowny face or a smiley face. She gave the face like a straight line. And she's like, it's not a sad face or a happy face, it's a think about it face. And she looks at me and she's like, you openly defied me. And I was like, no, you were just really slow with instructions. And I was like 6. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I had this woman telling me that I was openly defying her. And it's like, ma'am, if I were openly defying you, it would be far more open. But that really stuck with me. That, like, for a long time, especially that young, as artistic as I was at that age, it really sort of messed me up a little bit. I talked about that in therapy like 2 years ago when I was talking about some of my art blocks that I was having. Like, that came out very vividly, and the hatred I still have for that woman. Which, the good news is she was so old and it was so long ago, she is probably long dead, which we love that for her. But it was just, I don't know, it's one of those weird things where, like, it's not like it was an art class where it's like, you should be giving kids instructions and, like, boundaries. It was literally, like, busy work while they hid all the eggs. So, anyway. Exactly, yeah. What the good part of it was whenever, like, I mean, it didn't happen that day because, like, after the Easter egg hunt, there was, like, the food part of the day. you know, there's the whole party happened at that point. And then we went home and it was Easter break. But when we got back, my teacher was like, "What happened?" Because the teacher complained to her about me. And when I told her, my teacher, Miss Karen, ironically, Miss Karen, she was like, "Oh," well, she's like, "Don't listen to her." She was like, those were bad instructions. Like, kids should be using their imagination. You know, she like, so yeah, like my actual teacher was fine. But it was at the same point, I had an entire Easter break. And when you're 5 or 6, like that week of downtime to like sort of sit there and dwell on being accused of being openly defiant by some miserable old hag, not a pleasant experience. But like I said, I'm pretty sure she's no longer with us, so we love that for her. All right, so we've got some sky and some planets and part of a cloud. I'm gonna use some more Starjoy Gold for the cloud. I'm gonna go a little bit more pink with the cloud, just because why not? I'm gonna use, it's called Himalayan pink and Lox. Lox. It's actually, the Lox is a little bit more of an orangey color, but which is fine because with the planets, you want a little bit more orange in there. So we're going to go in and blend that out because most of that orangey color is going to be sort of on the fringes, which gets more of a reflection. A lot of people, if you watch sort of color along tutorials, we'll talk about like your, you know, like your light source or whatever. If that's something you really like doing when you are coloring or doing art, go for it. One of the reasons I have multiple planets is it means the light sources are coming from 3 different directions. So I have a little bit of freedom just to do whatever. The fun thing about this kind of doing this sort of art is that the only real rule is you should be having fun and enjoying it. Like you're not, this isn't like for, you know, like studio, you're not going to be putting this in a studio. So, I mean, possibly at some point, maybe a gallery would be into it, but like this is for you to enjoy. This should be your mental health time. This should be a way to relax. It should be a way to enjoy. Like Aaron, the Toyinator, had mentioned, like he wants some pages to do with his kids. That's perfect. Like this is a good way for you and your kids to hang out and do some art stuff. It doesn't take a lot of, doesn't take a lot. I mean, like I use all these fancy adult pencils and stuff. You could use Crayola or inexpensive rose art or whatever. Like, but yeah, like just have fun with it. If you're not having fun, what's the point? I see a lot of people sort of on ColorTube, especially, who are chasing sort of the trendy books and aren't necessarily always having fun doing the trendy adult coloring books, which is why I don't sort of stick into that's why I didn't end up over on ColorTube, because I enjoy a lot of the adult coloring books, but I don't necessarily feel a call to do stuff on the internet with those books the way I do with sort of all the old toy books, you know, like all these old properties that I love. The adult coloring book stuff tends to be more, that's how I get away. That's, I'll share it like on my Instagram when I complete some of them, but mostly that's for that's my mental health time. And this stuff also helps with it. Don't, like, this isn't, because I make content now, it's not as fun, but I do challenge myself a lot more on these than I do some of the adult coloring art, Just because, you know, if I'm going to stick it on the internet, it needs to at least be, you know, entertaining somehow. So yeah. But if you're doing this, don't make it too fancy unless you want to make it fancy and that adds to your enjoyment. I think a lot of people don't do art stuff because they think they're not good enough. And literally, unless you're trying to sell it or doing commissioned art, that doesn't matter. Now, if you're trying to sell it, like, obviously you're going to have to cater to your client. So that's different. But if you're just doing this for yourself, have fun. Do it the way you like. Use the tools you like. It can be as fancy or not as fancy as you want it. Yeah. All right. So, looking back at my reference, I do want sort of the bluer mountains. So I am going to grab a couple more. Oh wait, those are the same 3 blues. I'm going to grab a couple more blues from the Starjoy Gold box. Let's see. That one's pretty bright. That one's dark. And there we go. Alright, that gives me a good set. Thank you. Yeah, we love that for her. And that's like, as a Southerner, the secret is out about bless your heart. So I'm just going with we love that for you, or her, or whoever. Do it, Alex. Thank you. So I'm gonna end up doing most of the mountain more of a purple color, because Manny Faces has so much blue that it'll get lost. But I'm gonna do this upper sort of crusty part with the dark blue, just so that it has a little consistency. I'm going to do these back mountains with more of the darker blue. Just going in really rough. This will be rough but light, and then it'll be covered up by some of the lighter blues and blended out. The darker blues will work more with Tila because she's all white and gold. And I'm going to do her as the blonde Tila, so, which in my head canon is a different Tila. Like, there are a lot of things that Toy Guru added to sort of the history that I don't like. I don't like a lot of the names he gave, especially in Princess of Power. Also, I feel like there was a tendency on his part to try to go too hard with Princess of Power characters. Like, we've got Mermista decapitating Merman and stuff. Like, I get it. You're trying to make girl characters from an old girls line appealing to boys who are now adult men. But it was just unnecessary. But I do like the sort of thing he did with, like, Ular, and that he made that a different He-Man. So in my headcanon, Tila is just sort of the name of a warrior, sort of like a name of honor, so that there have been many women named Tila through this line of warrior women. And back when Ular was the He-Man, there was a blonde Tila who is the one we know. So, and at one point, She-Ra was going to be Leela, Tila's sister. So that's how I often explain all the weird Tila we get. There's the one mini comic where Tila has brown hair and like a yellow jumpsuit and looks nothing like Tila. That's Leela. That's Tila's sister. And I never worked out how she was Tila's sister, whether it's like the sorcerers had multiple husbands, or if it was Man-at-Arms' actual daughter, or if she had been adopted by Man. I never, like, as a kid, you don't necessarily go that deep when you want to add an extra character. And at the time, I didn't call her Leela because I didn't know about sort of that side of the She-Ra story. It was just Tila's sister. I don't even remember what I called her. But yeah, the brown-haired Tila from some of the mini comics is Tila's sister, Leela. But I was sort of that Mary Sue fanfic writer as a kid where it's like the self-insert was often, you know, Tila's sister often got attributes that were me. I think that's normal. It's important to know what a Mary Sue actually is before you get on the internet and start whining about Mary Sues in Star Wars. Most people don't know what the term actually means. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Alright, we've got some blue mountains in the background. Looks nice. Alright, so I'm going to go in with this lighter blue and sort of blend this out a little bit. So that sort of can blend into. Probably going to do these rocks behind them in a darker purple. As Many Faces doesn't really have much purple, and I think it would be complementary to the blues and stuff, but also help them stand out. Move these right into the way. Put all of these away. And that is one of Allison's art tips. Put away your stuff as you go. It makes it so much easier. And if you do time-lapse coloring videos, like, nobody ever notices that you're taking a minute to put pencils back in place. It's a very forgiving medium that way. So I'm just going to take, this is Midsummer Pink. These Starjoy Gold pencils have some fun names. There's a link to them on Amazon, and probably not in this video yet. I usually add that after the fact, but I do have it. As everyone else on YouTube is, I do have an Amazon affiliate store thing. These are pretty good budget pencils considering, in my opinion, the quality of them. So definitely, you know, it's 120. They're usually on sale for 23 to 25 bucks, which, if you know anything about adult coloring pencils, is a pretty good deal. So if you're looking for a good set of pencils, I definitely recommend these. There we go. Next. Let me check. Didn't you know that Ray Abrams? That was a good name. I gotta write that. Yeah, I will definitely. Yeah, I'll have you on to color as well. Like, we'll arrange that as well. Yeah, agreed, Brennan. Agreed. Yeah, like, that was sort of the thing. Like, this was the sort of phase where it's like they were made Tila the damsel in distress quite a bit. Which doesn't, you know, even in the first wave of mini comics, she often was getting captured and overpowered. But usually only after she gave, like, Beastman, like, a good solid butt whipping. Often in the original mini comics, it wasn't until, like, there were two of them that she was overpowered, so it was a little bit easier. But with Wave 2, there was a lot of, I guess, I don't, you know, we could call it misogyny. I don't know that that's how it was intended, because in the early 80s, like, the concept of a super kick-ass woman like Tila has become, like, was sort of still foreign. I mean, even in the Filmation cartoon, she wasn't always... She was capable and could hold her own, but she was still often not as empowered as she is, you know, like, as she was in Revelations, which I think was why a lot of people had some of the reaction that they did to Tila in Revelations, was she was you know, far more empowered and self-sufficient, and, you know, she had agency of her own, which to me makes her a more interesting character and makes her a better, you know, fit romantically for He-Man. I can't imagine He-Man wanting to be with He-Man or Adam wanting to be with the woman who needed her to save him all the time. Like, if you're having to save her, how are you going to protect Eternia and Castle Grayskull? Like, you need a woman who can help you. And Tila, as presented in Revelations, was, you know, able to kick ass and take names just as well. So I appreciated that. I think it's always weird when people have that reaction to a fictional character being written self-sufficiently and capable. But I don't know. Right, Miss O. Jenny. Would be a good character. Oh wait, that's Manny Face's arm. Let's not make that a mountain. Luckily, it's blue, so that'll cover up. Down in here. And down in here, I'm just going a lot lighter because I'm going to go darker with different colors. Well, not sort of heavier with different colors. I'm not going to go with darker colors. Bring in some more of this purple right in here. Love this pink. Midsummer pink. Yeah, I like that idea. I think that's fun. Yep, agreed. Yeah. Yeah, like that's what they were intending. It didn't always translate, but definitely that was where they were trying to go with it, which is why one of the things I do appreciate about Filmation, that was what they were trying to get across. It didn't always translate. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and this is one thing I will say about Filmation. There's a lot of stuff that, even as a kid, a lot of those moral messages just were groan-inducing. I think though Luce Scheimer really tried. He was really into trying to be diverse and inclusive, and I mean, the cartoon was far more inclusive than the toy line. There were way more people of color in the Filmation cartoon than were in the toy line. So I think Lou, you know, in that respect, I feel like he did a pretty good job. A lot of the women were far more capable than you would see elsewhere, but it still falls short because it's a product of its time. I think that's one of the things I've sort of, as an older person, had an easier time sort of processing, like liking something from back in the day that's problematic by today's standards doesn't make you a bad, like, I still love 16 Candles, but 16 Candles has a lot of problems around consent, a very racist portrayal of an Asian person. There's a lot of misogyny in it. Like, I still love it, but I also can identify those parts of it, and I'm not gonna, you know, my niece turned 16 in a few weeks. I'm not gonna say, you should watch 16 Candles because you're 16 now. I'm not gonna recommend it to my niece because that's, there's a lot in there that I think doesn't translate to modern times. And so, but there's nothing wrong with me still enjoying it. There's nothing wrong with you enjoying old problematic by today's standards as we've evolved as people. You just don't recommend it to, like, kids. You know, like, let's keep our old problematic stuff to ourselves. If they find it and enjoy it on their own, great. But if you have to give a kid like a list of things that they shouldn't like, you know, that isn't appropriate anymore, just don't recommend it to them. Nothing wrong with it. Doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make the kid soft. It just means our sensibilities, understanding, and knowledge of humanity has evolved. So that's my thoughts on it. As I prepare to, after the stream, I'm going to take an hour or two to unwind. I'm probably going to watch a Molly Ringwald movie, actually. So probably not Pretty in Pink, because I can't get over that hideous dress she's in that we're supposed to believe is awesome. Like, that dress had no shape. Anyway. This one is light and it's all rubbed away, but it's like clay rose is what it's supposed to say. Rubbed away, even though I don't use this one quite a lot. But, you know, sometimes it's not about that. But it's a darker, obviously like a grayish, earthy pink color, so it's perfect for the rocks. And again, just going in really lightly to lay down the color. And I'll be adding something different to this eventually, but just let me get the ground covered. There we go. Just on that. All right, I've got a good first layer on the ground. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. I really enjoyed it as well. Also looking forward to Revolution, so much so that I'm planning a lot of Masters of the Universe content next month. This is a precursor to that. We'll talk about that toward the end of the stream. Yeah, and I apologize for that. That sucks. Because I spent a lot of time not getting it. And that is something that is on me. Oh, I don't. Yeah, no, I can't rewatch Revenge of the Nerds. There's too much. Wait, what is the term we use on YouTube? So that, not that I'm monetized yet, but eventually, and I don't want them to go back and mark stuff. Grape. There's too much grape in Revenge of the Nerds. Straight up grape. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like, you know, being able to call it out helps. And thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not my fault. It's not my problem, but also, like, you got to call it out. If you don't call it out, you don't name it, you don't, you know, point it out, then you're just allowing it to exist. And that's not cool either. Like, it's that sort of silence that allows stuff to like fester and grow and turn into awfulness. So, you know, we all do what we can to try to. Wait, let me. I believe that most of the people I have in my world, by choice, we're doing what we can to make things better. And that's one of the ways I try to make it better. If at least I can name it and call it out and say it's not cool. Hey, if one person hears that message and it gets to them, that's a little bit of a thing I can do. So I'm not going to solve anything. I definitely don't have a savior complex, but, you know, being vocal can help. At the very least, it gets people who are not cool people to call you woke or whatever, and then you know who the not cool people are. And that's invaluable sometimes. to know who's not cool and to not trust. So, anyway. I'm going to be really honest. I'm going for a much more color palette that I normally would use for Princess of Power, but for whatever reason, this is just working for me. So, I'm liking sort of the purpleness of it. It does feel very Eternia, but it's a little bit softer. Eternia tends to be a lot more harsh. In most media, you know, especially Filmation, there's the really dark purple skies. So this is a little bit of a softer side of Sears, if you will. A little bit more what I would use for Princess of Power, but at the same time, it feels right for this. I think sort of the brutality of this picture, softening it a little bit is not a bad idea. Because, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I almost didn't pick this picture, but then I was like, well, you know, let's pick it, and then sort of talk about sort of the way Tila's portrayal has evolved over time. All right, there we go. It's a good neutral ground. There's some stones, so I'm going to go in with this darker shade, mid-violet. It's just mid-violet. Use that to sort of color in the rocks. No, I'm not saying this in a way to toot my own horn, but what I will say is this picture, like when I started, I was not feeling super positive about some of it, but just the coloring, like just a little bit of color to it, it's like the image has improved, which I think gives me a lot more hope for some of the pages in this book. I'm thinking that definitely as I do pages from this, I'll be able to sort of make them a lot stronger than they are as black and white images. So, like, because this looks way cooler than it did in black and white. So, which is cool, you know. It means I've got content. Just kidding, sort of. But it proves my hypothesis of what I sort of want this channel to be. Creativity of our old properties. So, little creativity is propping this one up. So, yeah. All right, there we go. Sort of bring in this darker pink a little bit in the back, a little bit around the rocks. In my head, I picture this as some sort of quartz. So not even real rocks, but just some sort of quartz. So like a quartz forest. I don't know why suddenly quartz was hard to say, but it happens sometimes. I'm going to go in with the peacock green Prismacolor and just make these trees green. It's going to get a little bit lost in the blue, but that's all right. They don't need to actually stand out that much. They just need some color on them so that they're not sort of void. So, there we go. Excellent. So the one thing I do prefer about this layout where like I'm not on camera and this is that I can see the image much better. So hopefully this works for you because this is probably what I'm going to default to when it's just me. All right, we have finished the background. There's a few little twerks I might do, but a few little tweaks we might do. I will be twerking later because, you know, when in doubt, twerk. Thank you. Yep, way too much. Yeah, I will, I would definitely, I'm happy to help anyone. Because a lot of the YouTube stuff that I watch outside of ToyTube is a lot of it is like documentaries. I watch a lot of LawTube, where they cover trials and stuff. A lot of sort of the drama videos, some of the MLM, anti-MLM videos, and a lot of those creators, because they are monetized, have to talk around certain topics. So because of that, I sort of going into it, no sort of, you know, like what words definitely will get you sort of flagged and demonetized, as well as what words people use in the place of them. So definitely I'm happy to spread that knowledge because, you know, there are definitely things that I personally think we should should be able to talk about, but also I don't want anyone to get flagged by YouTube, you know. So for skin tone, right, and it's pretty worn down because this pencil is almost done, but this is Prismacolor Eggshell. And it's a pretty good base color for any skin tone I'm going to do. You might find different if you're using Prismacolors, and that's fine. Everyone has their own way. I'm really quick going to look at my reference for Manny faces so that I can make sure to get skin in all the right places. There we go. And it looks like the way Alcala draws it, that these openings are also supposed to be skin. So I don't know about that one. I mean, that's how he's got it, but I don't know that one. I can cover that up with blue though. So when I do a skin base, I don't actually, it doesn't matter how necessarily even it is. It doesn't need to actually cover it all because I'm going to go in with shading. I just like having that base layer. So Alcala also draws him with no gloves and just bare hands, but the way this is designed, it's not going to work completely, but I'm going to do this sort of like a gauntlet, like a fingerless gauntlet, so that we can sort of blend the two styles. And that's hair. Okay. All right, there we go. Got the base. Got the base of the skin. So they're both very sort of tan, which, you know, Manny face is a little bit more orangey, especially in the toy. And Tila's a little bit more of a golden tan. So I'm going to start with burnt ochre. And then from Prismacolor Premier 12 set, the landscape set, I'm going to grab pumpkin orange. And we'll start shading Tila. So I'm going to use the ochre as my first layer of shade for Tila. This will sort of help give a basis for like that tanned look. And this again is really rough, and try to do light. I try to do light because this is going to end up blended out when I add layers and other colors. But you go a little bit darker sort of along the edges. But again, like this is going to get blended out, so it's not going to necessarily look stupendous right now in the moment, but that's because it's an in-between phase of it. As you can see, just sort of really sloppy on the hands. We'll have other layers to where that gets cleared out. So, all right, and then I'm gonna go in with the pumpkin orange, and then and for the pumpkin orange, I'm not gonna do everything. I'm just gonna do mainly in the face, and then I'm gonna sort of do the edges. Do the outer edges. All right, there we go. All right, and that is basically step one for Tila's skin. If you're going to be distracted by something, that's perfect. Always, always, always. Comic books are a good distraction. All right, let's see. All right, and for Manny Faces, we're going to go a little bit more orange. This is the first time I've used this palette for a million because I finally used up my other two. So let's go in because Manny Face is a little bit more orange. We're going to give him a nipple because it's 2023, almost 2024, and Manny Faces has a nipple. And if Hasbro can start giving their figures nipples, I can give Manny Faces a nipple. All right, there we go. So that's the first step in skin. Quickly look at my reference because he does a few things different. There's some green in those places that are often pink. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do the greens in the leg and right here in the waist piece. Just because since we're going a little bit different anyway, there's no reason not to enjoy the differences of it. And I've done a Manny Faces as a short where I go pretty much based on the cross-cell art. And I've got another one that I'll be doing soon where I go 100% toy colors. So you can go for the mini comic Alcala in this color, which I don't know if Alcala actually did his own colors. So it's possible that was just someone else. But I always assumed he did because it looks like they're done as watercolor for his art. So it doesn't look like the traditional comic book art where he drew it and then someone else colors it. It looks like he does them as watercolor. I could be wrong. It's another thing I plan to chat with Adam about at some point. I might actually just invite Adam on to sort of talk about the art stuff. I'm sure he has many interesting things to talk about with it. So stuff that hasn't quite made its way to Battleground yet. So I should plan that for this year. And I will. I've got, like I mentioned earlier, I've got some plans this year for 2024 anyway. I'm going to go in. That other color I used was, let's see, spring green, lighter green, a spring green. I'm going to go in now with peacock green and just do a layer over it. If If you've watched any of my strawberry shortcake shorts, whenever I do their striped socks, this is the same coloring formula for the most part. Spring green, and then peacock green. For those green stripes. There we go. What is different though from strawberry shortcake pages, I'm not going to use lime peel, which is a much darker green. I'm going to use that sort of to blend it all together. There we go. Sharpen. All right, and there's all the green parts of the costume. And now we should do the blue part. So this is a pretty darker blue, which is fine. I'm going to build to that though. I'm going to go with non-photo blue, which as you can tell, I use this one a lot. Pretty much the rest of his costume from this mini comic the pages are from is blue. So that's why I'm going to sort of layer these colors out. So that despite the fact it's all blue, it's not going to be quite so blue. I mean, it's not going to be like one shade of blue. Mix it up a little bit. And again, since this is a first layer, I'm not going to be as precise with layering it out. It's basically just to get that color in there. So in the mini comic, the little dial on his head is also blue. I'm going to go ahead and do that sort of red or orange. Just so that it's not too much of the blue shade. Thank you, Brick. Oh, see you in those chats as well. I don't know, Cobb. You should ask him if you can. You have to get consent, and then you could probably try anything. Nice. Oh, yeah, and it's almost, we're getting toward the end of the stream. Just because I try not to go too long. But I'm almost done, so I think I will try to, technically I would normally end in about 10 minutes. I'm not going to be done in 10 minutes. I'm going to see if we can get it done. Yeah, let's go, unless it's looking like it's going to take another hour or whatever. I'm just going to go a little long. And you can either hang out with me or catch it later if you need to see how it turns out. But this one's so close to being finished that it seems silly to finish it offline. All right, there we go. Alright, we have our blue layer, and now I'm going to do another layer, and I'm going to go for this one a little bit darker. I'm going to use Indian Throne Blue, which is definitely a darker shade. I'm just going to use that to sort of shade it and, you know, cover some of it. And this blue on its own is very dark and tends to cover up any sort of detail, so I tend to use it the most on top of another blue so I can just sort of go in very lightly with it and not lose a lot of the detail. So I'm liking how that looks. So it's funny, I think Manny Faces was the first figure we got, my brother and I got from Wave 2. Can't remember if he was my figure or if he was my brother's. One of the funny things about Wave 2 Motu was it was just, at that point, both my brother and I were getting them, and it was interchangeable for a while. Wave 1 was very distinctive. I had Tila and Zodak, and he had everyone else. I mean, he had started. My mom had got him. I used to spend every summer at my grandparents'. And while I was gone was, I guess, when Motu hit the local store, my mom got... I came home and my brother had Skeletor and He-Man, Beastman, and Man-at-Arms, which at that point were the only figures that were out. And then for Christmas, he got Castle Grayskull and Stratos, and that was it. And then a few months later for my birthday, I got Tila and Zodak, and then we didn't get Merman until... He got Merman the same day I got my Princess Leia and Bausch disguise, so... And I think by that point we were already buying Wave 2. Merman didn't... I don't know if he was short-packed or if he was just so popular that, like, he sold out. But I don't remember seeing Merman for a really long time. Like, I never saw him as, like, an 8-pack in stores. So... But I do remember being unimpressed with Merman because he looked so different from the cross-cell art. Like, he looked way more like... I like that mold for me looked great as Stinkor because it looks way more like a skunk than the fish dude, so... Hello, Roman the dog. How are you today? I'm assuming that Punk with Toys should not know you're here. Good to see you, Roman. All right, there we go. Alright, let's see. Let me quickly double check my image. Yep, no, it's pretty close. Which is good. I don't necessarily need exact. Close is good. There we go. Alright, now just finish this last leg. We'll do his mask and I'll finish up his skin. Alright, let's see. So here, he doesn't actually have any mask on, so don't have anything to base that on. So I'm just gonna use the same vermilion that I used for his skin. Use that and give him a little bit more color for the sides here, and then for the mask. And a little bit of color is always good. And then the dial on his head. That was one of the things I always wondered about Manny faces, like if somebody reached up and turned that, would it turn his face? Or if, yeah, so. Questions young Allison asked herself. And I'm going to go in with the cadmium orange and sort of darken this out. Okay. All right. Let's see. Sorry to hear that, Roman. Hope you're feeling better. Yeah, Roman is a good boy. I'm not really following the toy drama, so I have no idea what is happening there. I'm not sure either. Because I heard bits and pieces last night on Oz's and Payne's streams, but I didn't actually follow it. So who knows? All right, so we're gonna finish Manny Face's skin. I'm gonna go in with beige. And use that as sort of the next layer. And that'll help sort of with a little bit of the tan skin look. All right, and let's see, we did give him the nipple, so we're going to do a little bit of chestnut for the nipple. And then go in with mineral orange and finish that out. So there we go. And for the last layer of skin, we're going to use peach. It should help sort of get that, not quite the orange, like the bright neon orange that normally you would associate with Manny faces, but he's a step or two away from the I've spent too long in the tanning booth orange. And he has a prominent nipple, so there you go. Alright, that is the rest of his skin, except his hand, of course, over on the other side. Let's get that really quick. Alright. Okay, Manny Faces is done. It's 3 minutes after when I would normally stop, but all I've got left is Tila. Oh, wait. I take that back. I missed the gauntlet over here. There we go. Now all I've got left is Tila. Tila will go pretty quick, so I'm just going to keep going until we're done. Yeah, Tanny Faces. It's true. And I'll probably go in after we're done, and there are a few things I will touch up before I sort of post this on social media, but this is pretty close to being done, so I'll at least finish the image. So for the way Alcala does Tila, it's not sort of gold the way the figure was. This is sort of, and this part is gold, but the inside here is the fabric. So I'm going to follow his example there. I don't tend to use, because I have white paper, I don't really use the white pencil unless I'm blending a color. So often for white, I use cream. It doesn't actually always show up on camera, but trust me, it's there. And it's sort of the difference between what's on camera and what actually happened. And the cream will show up often when I finally scan the image in. And so, the furry parts of her shoulder, I'm going to actually do in sort of the gold color. Even though technically those are normally white. I'm just going to do them that way. And this is white bracer Tila. So again, I'm going to go in with the cream and do these bracers. Oh, and the furry boots will do cream on the top for the fur. All right. So for the fur, I'm going to go in with the burnt ochre and add some texture. There we go. And then on the bracer she has obviously some designs. So I'm going to again go in with the burnt ochre and just give it a little bit more definition. It's a little bit of a hint of a pattern here, so I'm going to sort of use that and just give it a little extra. Alright. Okay, so for the gold armor, there are a couple things that I do with gold. So I'm going to start with lemon yellow, and then go in and do everything that's supposed to be gold. And since I'm going to do the fur in gold, I'll do the furry shoulder parts right there. Alright, so lemon yellow is basically my first layer. Next, I'm going to use what's called goldenrod. Just go in and do a full layer of the goldenrod over all of that lemon yellow. Alright, and then with those I have sort of the basic steps for making gold. I'm going to go back in with burnt ochre and just very lightly get that ochre in there. And it sort of helps give that golden look. It's more of a shading with it than an actual doing a coloring with it. There we go. Alright, that's all of the burnt ochre shading. And now I'm going to go in with canary yellow and then just lightly bring in that canary yellow, which sort of gives it that last little bit of goldenness, and sort of blend in the burnt ochre. Right. And that's that. And thank you. Oh, funny. Wait, that was the one. Well, just wait, Cobb. Next month when you're on, I'll color you impressed. All right. So let's do the boots now. So Tila should have some strappies on those boots, so I'm just going to add those in. Go in and sort of add the layers of like the way the boots look on the actual action figure. All right, and we're back to my little nugget of chestnut brown. I'm going to go in and add the chestnut in without necessarily covering up any of the other lines. I'm going to sort of add these adjacent or consecutively. I don't know what the right word would be, but basically so that it's all in there together. And now we're going to use raw light umber. And with the light umber, I'm going to just go in and sort of blend out all of the other stuff except for the straps. Sort of all blend that together. And at this point, I'm going to lose some of those details that I put in on the boots, but at this point, I'm okay with it because those colors are in there under and part of it. So it just gives the boots like some texture and it makes them look more rich. Often as children, when we color, we just use like, I would have just used brown. And sort of one of the ways that you can sort of notch it up really easy is you're blending some colors out. You're adding more than one. You can't really blend with Crayola. It's not quite the wax. I mean, those are like pretty much pure wax, so they don't have sort of the blending that you get with a colored pencil. Even the Crayola brand colored pencils, you can get some blending with those. And next, I'm going to use chocolate, and I'm going to use that for these straps, so that it's definitely darker. It definitely stands out. You have more. I'm also not going to obscure sort of the burnt ochre that I use to draw those in, so that they continue to stand out, because that would be the reality. And I don't necessarily strive for realism, but I do sort of like a realistic look, which is different than realism. There are people who do sort of adult coloring art where it like literally looks really real, and I am in awe of those people, just not my style. And that's fine. All right, so we're gonna make her blonde. And I'm going to use the what I've been referring to as Mattel Leading Lady Blonde. This is what I have been using for Barbie and for She-Ra. So we're going to make Tila Mattel Leading Lady Blonde. That starts with cream. A little bit darker though than what I used for the skirt, because for the skirt I want it to look sort of off-white. For the hair, I want it to have more of the yellowy. So the heavier you go, the more yellowy it gets. My next step is going to be yellow ochre. And then at this point, I'm going to sort of go in with the yellow ochre and I'm not doing exact strands because the picture isn't this is too small to actually get in there and do, you wouldn't be able to really see strands of hair from this far away. But I'm going to sort of follow sort of the directions of these to sort of bring in that yellow, bring in the yellow ochre to give it more of a realistic shade. I do like trying to get a realistic hair color. I'm now going to come in a little bit with jasmine. And just use that sort of in the tips where, if you have blonde hair, the tips are usually a little bit lighter, and that's because of the fading that happens. Thank you, sunlight. All right, and now I'm going to go in with burnt ochre and just sort of move that all through the hair. And finally, canary yellow. So it's pretty close to gold. With Barbie, there's I leave way more of sort of the cream. There's more of the way her hair was done and is still done is like there are sections of like gold and there are sections of like really light creamy blonde. Tila doesn't quite need that, and that doesn't actually, if you look at sort of the art here, it's way more of just the yellow blonde. So it's adapted Mattel Leading Lady Blonde. I do have to say, as a child who had, and I still have red hair, it's just a lot darker than it now than it was as a kid. As you get older, if you're a ginger and your hair doesn't fall out, it tends to darken. But as a kid, I had bright, sort of orangish red hair for a long time. And I appreciated when I got my Tila figure that she was very red as opposed to blonde in the mini comic. But because this is blonde Tila, it's different. All right, so all that's left is to finish up Tila's skin. For that, we're going to use Deco Peach, which is a sort of pinkish peach. Not quite as dark as this one. And I'm just going to go in and start blending and buffing out sort of those layers I added earlier. Go a little bit heavier handed than I did with Mani Faces, just because the peach I use there is doesn't take as much pressure to get across. This Deco Peach, because it's a lighter shade, I find I need to color a little bit harder with it to really get the full effect when I'm blending it. That comes down to how hard you color and your actual style. And just like we all draw differently, we all actually color a little bit differently, in just the same way as the pressure and the way you hold your hand can make a difference in the way you draw. It can also make a difference in the way you color and the way you can blend stuff and get the effects you can get. So definitely, if you want to start getting to that level where you're really worrying about, using color pencils and doing blends and stuff, definitely take some time to practice, because what works for me may not 100% work for you. It's a little bit of trial and error. Or it might work for you. There are a couple people on ColorTube who their styles, I can't ever get to work the same way for me, and there are other people who color more heavy-handed and it works every time for me. So definitely just play around with it. Find what works for you. All right, we're almost done. Alright, that is all of the skin. Now we have a few last touches. I'm going to go in with Deco Pink and color Tila's tongue in. Let's give her a pink tongue. I'm going to go in with the cream and color her teeth. This will not at all translate on camera, but trust me, it's there. Also, I used the cream for her eyes, for the whites of them, which is more accurate to the color of most people's eyes. And now I'm going to use, let's see, this is ultramarine, so I'm going to go in and give Tila her darker blue eyes. She normally has like a light blue for the toy, but we're going to give her a darker blue here. Alright, let's see. And then the vintage toy Tila had sort of a pale blue eyeshadow, if my memory serves. So I've got powder blue, so let's give her that 70s blue eyeshadow look. And let's do it. So that when she's done grappling with Manny faces, she can hit the disco and dance all night at Studio 54. And then for her lip, I'm going to start a light layer of carmine red, which is an orangey red. And then I am going to finish her lip with processed red, which is actually a dark pink. So there we go. Alright, she is done, except for a few little touches. This is something I like to do. I'm going to go in with my let's see, it's fine line black pen. And I'm going to redraw basically the eyelashes and the eyes. And it doesn't really show on camera, but I'm going to put the pupil back in there. And it's time for Everyone's Friend, which is also mine, the white paint pen. So we can put the stars in her eyes. And give Manny faces some nice white eyes. And because this is Eternia, even in the daylight, there are stars in the sky. Which definitely helps with the fantasy look of it. Try not to smudge it. Alright, and one final thing that's actually been bothering me, I'm going to go in with a darker brown. I'm just going to sort of hit up this one little moon a little bit. So it has a little bit more standing out. There we go. Alright, and that's that. I'll probably tinker with it a little bit more off screen once this is done. I want to go in and play a little bit more with his armor. I feel like we can do a bit more with it, but I need to step away from it before I do that, because sometimes you need to step away from it. So that's that for now. After I do the tinkering, I'll post it on Instagram. But before we get to that, we are going to wrap it up with announcements, because that's what we do on YouTube. So coming up tomorrow, I have one of my shorts compilations tomorrow. I normally do those as premiere, but tomorrow I have a lot going on, so it's just going to release. So if you could go and watch that at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when it lands, Muchly appreciated. Let's see. I also, on Wednesday, will have the last of the Empire Strikes Back toy booklets. Will premiere on Wednesday at 5:30. So that will be happening. I am so those are the immediate things. We're coming upon the anniversary of Carrie Fisher leaving us, so I'm going to be doing some spontaneous live streams from the 22nd through the 27th, which is the day she did leave, where I do some Carrie Fisher color alongs, sort of like we did today, but just Carrie Fisher stuff. So I'll be popping up in live streams sort of to celebrate that. In December, I'm going to be doing Masters of the Universe content, sort of to coincide with Revolutions. Got, feed the algorithm as you can, but it's stuff I've been planning to do anyway, so it just was a good incentive. I'm going to be doing more live streams spontaneously on my own as I can, doing pages from this book. My goal is to color the whole thing. So I'm going to put in my community tab four pages from this book that I like, and if you could go to my community tab once that goes up and vote for the ones you like best, that's the one I will do on the next live stream I do for this. Yeah, in January there will be a lot of Masters of the Universe content, most of which I've already had prepared. I have a bunch of coloring videos that are single pages and longer form that have just sort of been sitting as I edit and release. So there will be that. I'm going to do more live streams, just me. There will still be on Sundays guest hosts, guests who color with me. So that's not going to change, but I'm just going to do some more live streams with the coloring because I find I get more pages done when I do them on live stream when I have someone to talk me through it. And I'm also almost done with daily shorts. That's the other side. I will have more time for doing this. I'll still be doing shorts regularly, but it's not going to be every day because it's an unrealistic turnaround time. And it has, the last few weeks, gotten in the way of me doing other content. So, yeah. So there will be more stuff coming. More Motu stuff. The goal is January will be Motu. February, I'm going to be doing some Princess of Power stuff. March, tentatively, I'm going to do Wonder Woman stuff. And then in April is my birthday, and I'm going to be super old. So I'm going to just be doing a lot of fun stuff. And then May the 4th be with you, so we'll be doing Star Wars. So sort of keep that in mind. But in April, I've got a few things planned to celebrate being old as dirt. So definitely there will be stuff coming. That's sort of it. Let me catch up really quick. Make a short. Alex, make some shorts. Like, start making shorts. Create content. Throw some spaghetti at the wall and see what you get. There's no reason not to. All right. Anyway, so that's all of that. I hope I will see all of you, I'm sure, in chat at Brooke's channel, Adam's channel, figuratively, highly articulated, and Brick something. I'll be probably at Geek Dad Life chats or later today, as well as I'm going to try to bounce back and forth between Geek Dad Life and Hella Dope. So hopefully we'll see you all in those places, and then obviously most of you I see in other places too. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. It's been lovely, and I will see you. I'll definitely be doing a live stream on Friday for Carrie Fisher. So yeah, the 22nd is this Friday. So yeah, I hopefully will see you guys on Friday for Carrie Fisher stuff. I got some nice stuff planned for Space Mom. So anyway, in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you. Allison Joy, Retro Toy Princess,